Are the Oilers in trouble? There are many questions regarding the Oilers' lack of speed and their lineup with the loss of multiple key pieces here during the offseason. But we'll take a deep dive into the numbers, see how exactly what has all changed within the Oilers' lineup in terms of speed. But before we get into that, make sure to subscribe here to Oilers Digest as we are on the road to 1,700 subscribers. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us along the way as we get into the rest of the dog days of summer here for the Oilers. Lots of things to talk about in the near future, but as for now, let's talk about the Oilers' speed. Old and slow or just old? The question must be asked regarding the Oilers' speed, of course. When it comes to the average age, the Oilers are the oldest, but does that mean they are necessarily the slowest? I don't think so. Let's take a deep dive into the positions here, starting off with the center. Edmonton's top three centers in 2024-25 projected to be Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Adam Henrique. Of course, the first two, McDavid and Draisaitl, you don't have to necessarily worry about their speed. It's the rest of the lineup that, could cause some trouble. And here's how they rank compared to other forwards who might play center for the team, according to the NHL Edge website, which in the past season, I do believe it's provided a lot of fans, a lot of media members with more statistics and analytics relating to the game of hockey. I know some people might not like, analytics ruling the game, but they are here to stay. You can see here the departure of Dylan Holloway. He would have been the third fastest projected center for the team. Of course, he could flip-flop between, center and playing a wing next to Leon Draisaitl, which many hoped would have happened this season, myself included. But alas, here we are. And of course, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins here fourth on the list when it comes to speed, kilometers per hour, 36, almost at 37. Of course, the league average is 35.57. And then, Derek Ryan and Adam Henrique, two of the older players on the team. Of course, they would, rank near the end for the Oilers below league average in terms of speed. At center, the math suggests losing Dylan Holloway is less than ideal, and the recently traded Ryan McLeod, who had 38.3 kilometers per hour average and 4.6 bursts over 32 kilometers per game, also represents a drag on speed at the position. I know Ryan McLeod, divided amongst many of the fan base. Of course, he's one of the best skaters on the team, in my opinion. At the time before he was traded, he was the second best skater on the team at many times. If you watch the game with the volume off, there was really no difference between Ryan McLeod and Connor McDavid, the way they took the puck up the ice with ease, with speed. But for many fans, it was the problem that McLeod would gain the zone with the puck and then just end up not doing anything with it. But it's more than that. I think on the penalty kill he'll be missed, and just his speed in general. I mean, he hustled to every single puck, and that's something the Oilers will miss out on tremendously. And we'll take a look at the wingers here. Victor Arvidsson, near the top there for the wingers. Of course, the recently departed Dylan Holloway in blue, and also near the bottom, Vasily Podkolzin below league average there. And it's kind of interesting to see, Matisse Janmark near the top there. You could see his speed throughout the playoffs, especially on that, history-setting penalty kill. And again, Dylan Holloway near the top there. And then Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Evander Kane. Now, with Evander Kane, his questionable decision status, relating to the start of the season, a loss like him would be dramatic to the Oilers' speed along the wings there. You can see the league average there. And then below that, Jeff Skinner. We'll get to him in a second. Podkolzin and Corey Perry. Now, Corey Perry on the edge of 40 years old. No surprise there, but he still can be effective in many other ways. But when it comes to Jeff Skinner, no one can do the things Jeff Skinner can do with his edges. It is well documented that Skinner was a competitive figure skater well into his teenage years, and the thing about figure skating is that it requires balance and edge training to achieve smoothness and beauty. Over the years, one of the figure skating movements that has made the transition to hockey is the mohawk, and that sort of, fancy edge work within hockey that many players, ever since, Jeff Skinner sort of came into the league and innovated these figure skating moves. You can see Sidney Crosby doing something like that, and many other players sort of just using more than their speed to make skating more effective. And lastly here, when it comes to the positional breakdown defense, and it was kind of surprising that Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci were near the top there for the Oilers defense. Of course, when you are always out of position, you have to skate fast, and that's exactly what they did here. And then Philip Broberg and Ty Emberson sort of neck and neck here when it comes to, speed. And that's kind of, relieving to know, with the loss of Philip Broberg, you have someone like Ty Emberson who can sort of keep up on the, the ice just as well. And it'd be interesting to see, Darnell Nurse and Ty Emberson. You'd be thrusting Ty Emberson into a role he might not just be ready for, a sort of a shutdown second pair. I know when you put Nurse and shutdown together, it doesn't quite make sense, but you sort of have that, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde defensive pairing, and I think it could work. That's asking a lot out of Emberson to sort of babysit Darnell Nurse on the ice, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. And then Evan Bouchard and Matthias Ekholm right above league average there. And of course, you have Troy Stetcher and Josh Brown. Of course, you can, if you haven't noticed, Brett Kulak, not on this list, but he's a very effective skater. Not exactly, a fast skater, but an effective one nonetheless. And you can sort of slot him there in between maybe Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard, maybe below or above Ty Emberson. Now, when it comes to, just a team as a whole, last year, NHL team speed burst over 32 kilometers per hour per 60. It's the names you most expect near the top. Colorado, Edmonton, and Tampa Bay. I know Colorado, just a dangerous rush team with the likes of Mikko Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar. That's to be expected there. And then Columbus, fourth place there. They're younger, fast team, so a fast team doesn't equate to playoff success or standing success. You can see there in the top 10 you have teams like Columbus, Ottawa, Montreal, but it's also interesting on the opposite end of the spectrum here. The worst 10 teams in the league there. You can see Nashville, second place, or second last I should say, when it comes to speed burst per 60. So it's more so not so much a speed kills in this scenario. It's how you effectively use your speed. And of course, a lot of average playoff teams in the middle of the pack there. You got teams like Carolina, Winnipeg, New York, Toronto, Philadelphia, or Florida, I should say. Florida, it's kind of interesting because I was always pictured them as a rush team alongside Dallas and Vancouver, but to see them at 18th, 19th, and 20th, very surprising when it comes to the overall stats. Now, it must be mentioned that speed bursts should not be viewed as a precise measurement of speed. There's a difference between being fast and playing fast, and attributes such as agility, acceleration, and edge work are not exactly captured in this metric. Of course, it's kind of hard to capture that with analytics. I'm sure in the near future we will see that, because the analytic part of hockey is growing faster than you know it. But this data is probably the best we have publicly in terms of measuring speed, and it is interesting to parse through. And my thoughts exactly here is kind of interesting to see how exactly teams use their speed. The teams that surprise you in terms of speed. It's the data is interesting nonetheless. But when it comes to the Oilers' forward group skating speed as a whole, there you can see a difference between the roster on the left that still has Ryan McLeod, Warren Foegele, and Dylan Holloway, and then the roster on the right there with Victor Arvidsson, Jeff Skinner, and Podkolzin. You can see Skinner and Podkolzin near the bottom of the list. So as a whole, it looks like the Oilers did miss out on speed, but it's not really, that big of a difference. You can see on the bottom of the graphic there, team average 36.5 top speed kilometer per hour, and on the right, the projected roster with the new additions 36.1, and then the bursts per 60, 7.7 per 60 per a full game, and then on the right 5.8 bursts per 60. Now you can see there they got older players on the team like Derek Ryan and Corey Perry that could sort of skew the data going into the playoffs. We might not necessarily see them game in and game out, so we will see an updated one here, and you can see there's much more. It's much more closer between the roster on the left there and this year's upcoming roster. When it comes to Vasily Podkolzin, still only just slight kilometer per hour past or below Connor McDavid, I should say. It's not necessarily much of a difference, and you can see on the right there with guys slotting in younger players like James Hamblin, and even guys that you don't see on the list that could boost the favor for the Oilers, like Matthew Savoy. Later on in the season, he was a speedy guy in Moose Jaw in Wenatchee when he played in the junior. So it's not necessarily that much of a difference. But when it comes to speed, there's taking the puck up the ice there, and there's the transitional stats. and this is where the roster for this year comes into play heavily. Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner, alongside McDavid and Draisaitl. Victor Arvidsson is actually one of the best transitional guys in the entire league there. And again, you can see on the bottom there, 9.8 controlled entries and then 6 controlled exits for the forwards. I don't have the stats for the defensive group. And on the right there, team average 10.3 controlled entries and 6.1 controlled exits. So it's all about using your speed. And with McDavid, Arvidsson, Skinner, it makes a whole lot more difference. I mean, on the left there, Ryan McLeod. That's really the only loss there when it comes to control entries, because again, he could carry the puck up with ease. It's just what he did with it. And when pondering the team's foot speed in any loss in this area due to the exits of Broberg and Holloway, it's fair to say the organization has enough fast trains on the roster to survive the losses. And again, when it comes to the Oilers and their foot speed, I don't think there's much of a difference going into this year. Of course, that could change all the more with injuries and the such. But when it comes to the Oilers, did they get slow? No. I think they stayed just about the same. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Did the Oilers change dramatically in your eyes? Is there anything you'd like to see different within the team? Let me know down in the comments. Have yourselves a great day and a great week. I'm Matt.